Caleb sat on the small wooden fence at the edge of the town square, his legs swinging lazily as he watched the festival begin. The sky above their colony was painted in shades of orange and purple, the twin suns dipping low behind the mountains. The air was warm, carrying the smells of roasted fruits, sweet pastries, and strange alien flowers brought in from the outer gardens. Caleb loved this time of year. It was the day when the town celebrated the Festival of Lights, a tradition that marked the end of the harvest season. But more than anything, he loved seeing all the different creatures from nearby colonies visit for the festival. He leaned back and stretched his arms, feeling the soft wind brush against his face. That's when he saw her. Leela was running between the stalls, her laughter ringing like bells. She had a small braid in her dark hair that bounced with every step, and her eyes sparkled like tiny stars. Caleb had noticed her before, of course. She lived on the edge of town, near the river, and sometimes they played together when the streets were empty. But today, something about her smile made him want to go over and talk to her. He jumped down from the fence and walked toward her, careful not to run and scare her. As he approached, he saw her stop in front of a stall that had small, glowing plants in jars. She leaned in, fascinated, her tiny hands reaching to touch one of the jars. Caleb stood behind her and waited, unsure if he should say anything. "Hi, Leela," he finally said, his voice cracking just a little. Leela turned around, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, Caleb, I didn't see you there." He scratched the back of his neck and smiled. "I wanted to see the festival with you." Her smile grew brighter, and she held out her hand. "Come on, I'll show you something." Caleb took her hand, feeling a small thrill run through him. They ran together past the stalls, the crowd of humans and aliens around them creating a blur of color and sound. Music played from a stage at the center of the square, and dancers in bright costumes twirled around, their movements both human and alien, a mix of traditions from across the colonies. The festival smelled of spices and roasted food, and laughter filled the air like bubbles floating on the wind. They stopped in front of a small fountain that was lit with soft, glowing lights. Water bubbled up and spilled over smooth stones, and tiny creatures that looked like fireflies hovered around the fountain, leaving trails of light in the air. Leela leaned over and dipped her fingers into the cool water. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked. Caleb nodded. "Yeah, it's amazing." He noticed a small flower floating on the water, its petals a deep blue with white specks that shone in the light. Without thinking, he reached in and picked it up. "Here," he said, handing it to Leela. I want you to have this." Leela's eyes widened, and she took the flower carefully. "It's beautiful." "Thank you, Caleb." She tucked it into her braid, smiling shyly. Caleb felt his heart beat faster. He had never felt this way before, not really. He wanted to say something important, something that would last forever. And somehow, the words just came out. "I'll marry you when I grow up." Leela blinked at him, stunned for a moment, then laughed. "Marry me? You're so small." She was only a few months older than him, but she was already taller, and she had a way of teasing him that made him feel both embarrassed and happy. Caleb shrugged, trying to act confident, though his cheeks were red. "I mean it. I'll come back and marry you. You'll see." Leela giggled and shook her head, shaking the tiny lights in her braid as she did. "Okay, Caleb, I'll wait. But you better not forget." He smiled, feeling proud. "I won't forget, I promise." They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the festival together. Caleb tried to win a small stuffed alien at one of the game stalls, but failed, though Leela cheered him on as if he had won 100 times. They ate sweet pastries that melted in their mouths and watched the glowing lanterns float into the evening sky. Caleb wanted to remember every detail, every sound and smell, every laugh. This was a moment he wanted to hold in his heart forever. As the sun set completely, the square became alive with lights. Fireworks streaked across the sky in colors Caleb had never seen before, colors that seemed almost alive. Leela clapped and cheered, and Caleb joined her, feeling as if the stars themselves were celebrating with them. Eventually, the festival began to quiet down. The crowds thinned, and the music became soft and gentle. Caleb walked Leela back toward her home near the river. The path was lined with glowing stones, and the air was cool and fresh. Lila's small house was simple but charming, with vines climbing the walls and tiny lanterns hanging from the roof. "I had fun today," Caleb said quietly. "Me too," Leela replied. She paused for a moment, then looked at him seriously. "You really will come back, won't you?" Caleb nodded. "I promise. No matter what, I'll come back for you." Leela smiled, her eyes soft and trusting. She opened the door and turned back to him. "I'll be waiting, Caleb. I'll always be waiting." He waved goodbye and walked home under the stars. The promise he had made feeling heavier and more important than anything he had ever done. That night, he lay in his small bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining a future where he and Leela were together. It felt like a dream, but it was a dream he intended to make real. The next morning, life returned to its usual rhythm. Caleb went to school, played with friends, and helped his parents with chores. But he never forgot the promise. Every time he saw a flower, or a floating lantern, or a star in the sky, he thought of Leela. He even started keeping a small notebook, writing down things he wanted to tell her when he returned one day. As the years went by, Caleb and Leela both grew. Caleb learned how to pilot small ships, fix engines, and survive in harsh environments. Leela studied the stars, collected rare plants, and learned the secrets of distant planets. They rarely saw each other, but the memory of that day at the festival stayed alive in both their hearts. Caleb often wondered what Leela was doing, whether she still remembered his promise, and if she would still wait for him. He knew life could take people far apart, and that the universe was vast and full of dangers. But somehow, deep inside, he believed that promise was stronger than distance, stronger than time. It was a small seed planted in childhood, and he intended to nurture it until it grew into something real. And so, the little boy who had promised to marry Leela when he grew up began his journey through life. With that promise as his guide, every choice he made, every challenge he faced, he carried that memory with him. It was a quiet strength, a reminder that somewhere out there, a girl with a braid and sparkling eyes believed in him. As he drifted to sleep that night, he imagined a future filled with adventures among the stars, and in every vision, Leela was there, smiling, waiting for him. The promise of a simple flower, a simple word, had planted the beginning of a story that neither time nor distance could erase. Caleb's teenage years were filled with hard work, learning, and dreams of exploring the stars. Every morning he woke early, helping his parents with the small farm near their home. He learned how to plant crops, repair tools, and even take care of the small animals that roamed the land. Life on their colony was simple, and sometimes he wished for excitement. But he knew that patience and effort were important, even though he was busy with chores. Caleb never forgot Leela. Every week, he would take a walk near the river where her house stood, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Most of the time, he would only see her through the window, studying or tending to her small garden. He waved when he saw her, and she waved back with a smile that made his heart feel lighter. But as they grew older, visits became less frequent. Leela was busy with her studies, and Caleb was busy learning new skills that would prepare him for the future. Caleb spent a lot of time at the local workshop, fixing small engines and machines. He loved understanding how things worked. He could take apart a small hovercraft and put it back together better than before. The older men in the village often praised his skill, and some even said he had the mind of a pilot. Caleb liked that thought, flying among the stars, visiting distant colonies, seeing strange worlds. He dreamed of it every night. But in all those dreams, Leela was always there. Meanwhile, Leela's life was also changing. She spent hours in her small laboratory, studying the plants and minerals from nearby planets. She was especially interested in plants that could grow in harsh environments, hoping one day she could help terraform distant worlds. Leela was smart, curious, and determined. She often thought about Caleb, remembering his small promise. The memory made her smile and gave her courage during long nights of study. She knew that even though they were far apart, someone believed in her and their shared future. One summer, a delegation from the Colony Council announced a program to train young pilots and explorers for human expeditions beyond their solar system. Caleb's heart raced when he heard the news. This was exactly what he had dreamed of, an opportunity to see the stars, to travel where few humans had gone before. Without hesitation, he applied, and after several tests and interviews, he was accepted. The training was hard. Caleb spent months learning how to pilot small spacecraft, navigate using stars and planets, and survive in harsh environments. He trained with other young cadets, some older, some his age, all with the same dream of exploring the galaxy. During this time, Caleb wrote letters to Leela. He wrote about the stars, about his training, and about how he was growing stronger and smarter every day. He never sent them at first, unsure if she would even read them. But writing helped him feel connected to the promise he had made years ago. Every word reminded him that he was not just training for adventure, but for a future where he could return to her. Leela, in her own way, continued her work. She began sending small reports to the Colony Council about her discoveries. Her studies on alien plants were impressive, and she soon gained recognition among the scientific community. She also began exploring the possibility of joining a research fleet, traveling to distant colonies and planets to study their ecosystems. Even though her world was more academic than adventurous, she often thought of Caleb as she imagined what it would be like to travel with him. Years passed, and Caleb grew into a strong, skilled young man. His hair was darker, his face more confident, and his hands were calloused from work and training. Yet, inside, he was still the same boy who had promised to marry Leela. He carried that memory everywhere. It gave him strength during difficult training exercises, patience during long journeys, and hope during lonely nights in the dormitory. One day, during a training exercise in a simulation chamber, Caleb found himself facing a difficult challenge. The chamber simulated a damaged spacecraft drifting near an asteroid field. He had to navigate through the obstacles, repair the craft, and rescue a stranded crew. Many of his fellow cadets struggled, but Caleb remembered the lessons from the farm: care, patience, and focus. Slowly and carefully, he guided the craft through the asteroid field, repaired the systems, and saved the crew. His instructors were impressed, and Caleb felt a surge of pride. In that moment, he thought of Leela, imagining her proud smile. It reminded him that the promise was not just words, it was a goal to strive for. While Caleb was training, Leela finally received the opportunity she had been waiting for. The council approved her request to join a scientific expedition fleet. She would travel to distant planets, studying their environments and helping develop new habitats for future colonies. Leela felt excitement and nervousness at the same time. She knew she was leaving her home and the familiar world behind. But she also knew that life was about exploration and growth, and that her dreams were worth pursuing. Before she left, she visited the river where Caleb often walked. She remembered the last time she had seen him, years ago, and the promise they shared. She whispered to herself, "I'll wait for you, Caleb, no matter where life takes us. I'll wait." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, it felt as if the stars themselves had heard her words. Caleb and Leela's paths began to move toward the wider galaxy, though they did not know exactly when or how they would meet again. Caleb completed his training and received his first official assignment, to travel with an exploratory fleet beyond their solar system, charting new planets and reporting findings back to the colonies. He packed his belongings, said goodbye to his family, and prepared for the journey of a lifetime. On his first voyage, Caleb experienced wonders he had only imagined. He saw planets with skies of green and purple, moons that glowed like lanterns, and alien creatures that moved in ways he had never seen before. He navigated through meteor storms, rescued stranded vessels, and learned to trust his instincts in the vast unknown of space. Yet, through all of it, he carried the memory of Leela, the small girl with the braid and sparkling eyes who believed in him and their future together. Meanwhile, Leela traveled from one colony to another, studying strange plants, helping scientists understand alien ecosystems, and collecting samples for research. She marveled at the diversity of life and the beauty of planets untouched by humans. Every evening, as she watched the stars from her ship's observation deck, she thought of Caleb, wondering if he was looking at the same sky. Thinking of her as she thought of him. Time passed, and both of them changed in ways they could not have imagined as children. Caleb became a respected pilot and leader, trusted by those in his fleet. Leela became an expert in her field, admired by colleagues across the colonies. But despite their achievements, neither forgot the promise made years ago. That memory remained a quiet force, a guiding light through the challenges of adulthood. One day, during a mission to map a newly discovered system, Caleb received an urgent message from the Fleet Council. They needed him to escort a high-priority research team to a distant planet. As he prepared his ship, he glanced at the stars and thought, not for the first time, of Leela. He wondered if she had seen this planet before, if she had studied it, or if their paths might cross. Deep inside, he felt a strange certainty that one day, somewhere among the stars, they would meet again. At the same time, Leela's expedition faced a critical challenge. One of the planets they were studying had a volatile atmosphere, making it dangerous to land. Leela coordinated with her team, using all her knowledge and skill to ensure their safety. As she worked, she thought of Caleb, imagining him navigating through danger with confidence and bravery. She smiled, feeling connected to him even across the vast distance. Though separated by hundreds of light years, their hearts remained bound by the promise of a childhood memory. It was not just a silly promise made by a little boy. It had become a symbol of hope, trust, and love. It reminded them that no matter how far life took them, some things were worth holding onto, worth believing in, and worth returning to. And so, as Caleb piloted his ship through unknown star systems and Leela studied alien worlds, with careful precision, both carried the same quiet hope, a hope that one day, the little boy's promise would come true, and the girl who had waited would finally see him return. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but neither Caleb nor Leela could imagine a greater adventure than the day they would finally be together again. Caleb's missions continued through the stars, each journey taking him farther from the colonies he had known as a boy. Every planet brought new challenges, rough terrains, harsh climates, and creatures he had never seen before. But with each new mission, Caleb grew stronger, wiser, and more confident. The small boy who had once promised to marry Leela when he grew up had become a capable young man, admired by his peers and respected by his superiors. One day, Caleb received a message that would change everything. The Fleet Council informed him that he would be assigned to a joint scientific and exploratory mission to a distant system that had shown signs of potentially habitable planets. His task was to escort the scientists, ensure their safety, and assist with any unexpected dangers. As he read the message, his mind immediately thought of Leela. He wondered if she might be part of this team, though he had no way of knowing. The possibility made his heart beat faster. Meanwhile, Leela was on her own journey, traveling with her research team to the same distant system. Her work involved analyzing the planet's soil, atmosphere, and plant life to determine if it could support human colonization. The trip was long and tiring, but Leela's determination never wavered. She often thought of Caleb, imagining him piloting his ship with steady hands, confident and brave. She hoped that somehow, somewhere, their paths might meet again. The fleet finally approached the system. Caleb's ship led the convoy, scanning each planet carefully before allowing the scientists to land. The planets were beautiful and strange, with skies of unusual colors and landscapes that seemed almost alive. Caleb felt a familiar thrill of adventure, but it was mixed with a quiet hope that he might see Leela again. On the third planet in the system, the team prepared to land. The surface was rocky and covered with strange blue grass that shimmered in the light of the planet's sun. As Caleb guided the landing, he noticed a familiar figure among the scientists, a young woman with dark hair and a braid, her eyes scanning the terrain with careful precision. His heart skipped a beat. Leela, she had grown, matured, and now stood as a capable scientist in her own right. Caleb felt a wave of relief and happiness. He had found her after all these years. Leela looked up from her instruments and noticed the approaching ship. Something about the pilot's confidence and the way he handled the landing caught her attention. Then she saw him, Caleb. For a moment, she could not believe her eyes. The boy who had once promised to marry her was now a young man, strong and capable. Standing before her, she smiled, and a tear of joy slipped down her cheek. Caleb stepped out of the ship, his eyes never leaving Leela. He said softly, almost in disbelief, "It's really you." She ran toward him, and they embraced, laughing and crying at the same time. Years apart had not weakened the bond between them. If anything, it had grown stronger. Their reunion was brief, however, as the mission required their full attention. The planet was unstable, with sudden storms and unpredictable wildlife. Caleb worked alongside Leela and the other scientists, guiding them through dangerous terrain, ensuring their safety, and helping to transport samples back to the ship. Leela marveled at Caleb's skill, remembering the boy who had promised so long ago. She realized that he had kept that promise not just in words, but in the way he had grown into someone she could trust completely. As the days passed, Caleb and Leela spent more time together, working and exploring the planet. They shared stories of their years apart, laughing at the memories and marveling at how much they had changed. Caleb told Leela about his missions, the planets he had seen, and the challenges he had faced. Leela shared her research, the discoveries she had made, and the places she had visited. Despite the harsh conditions and constant danger, they found joy in each other's company. One evening, after a long day of exploration, Caleb and Leela sat on a rocky outcrop, watching the twin suns set behind distant mountains. The sky was painted in colors neither of them had ever seen, and the air was filled with the scent of alien flowers and grasses. Caleb turned to Leela, his voice quiet but steady. "Do you remember the promise we made when we were children?" Leela nodded, smiling softly. "I do, and I've been waiting for the day we would meet again." Caleb took her hand, feeling the warmth and strength of her grip. "I promised you then, and I promise you now, no matter where life takes us, I will always come back to you." Leela's eyes filled with tears, and she leaned into him, feeling the truth in his words. Their bond grew stronger as the mission continued. They faced dangerous storms, navigated treacherous landscapes, and even encountered hostile alien creatures. Caleb's skills as a pilot and protector were invaluable, while Leela's knowledge and quick thinking saved the team on more than one occasion. Together, they formed a team that was more than just professional. They were partners, relying on each other completely. One day, while exploring a cave system that glowed with bioluminescent minerals, they discovered evidence of ancient alien life. Strange markings on the walls suggested a civilization that had once thrived on the planet. Caleb and Leela studied the markings together, piecing together a story of a people who had adapted to the harsh environment and left behind knowledge for future explorers. The discovery thrilled Leela, and she felt grateful to share it with Caleb, knowing that he would understand her excitement in a way no one else could. As the mission drew to a close, the team prepared to return to the fleet's main ship. Caleb and Leela walked together through the alien landscape, taking in the beauty and danger of the planet one last time. Caleb stopped and turned to Leela, holding her hands firmly. "I want you to know something," he said. "I never forgot you, not for a single day. And now that we've found each other again, I don't ever want to be apart." Leela smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "I never forgot you either, Caleb, and I feel the same way." The fleet lifted off from the planet, carrying them back to the stars. Caleb and Leela stood side by side on the observation deck, looking out at the vast expanse of space. They were no longer children, but the promise they had made long ago still guided them. They knew that the universe was full of wonders and dangers, but together, they felt capable of facing anything. On the way back to the fleet's main base, Caleb and Leela began planning for the future. They discussed the possibility of working together on future missions, exploring planets, and discovering new life forms. They also talked about life beyond work, about building a home together, and about keeping the promise they had made as children. The memory of the small flower, the laughter, and the simple words of a promise had grown into a strong bond that neither time nor distance could break. As they reached the main fleet base, Caleb knew that his journey was far from over. But now he had something worth fighting for, not just survival or adventure, but a life shared with someone he loved deeply. Leela felt the same, knowing that she had found a partner who would support her, challenge her, and stand by her through the unknown paths of the universe. And so, as the fleet prepared for new missions and the stars stretched endlessly around them, Caleb and Leela stood together, hand in hand, ready to face the galaxy. They had found each other again, and the promise of a childhood memory had become the foundation of their shared future. No matter where the stars led them, they knew they would always return to each other, fulfilling the promise made long ago under the glow of a simple festival light.